2 wins to name and a chance to seek redemption, to try and break away from the pack, pick up the wooden spoon, and feel good about their chances to close out split number 1. Dewish team took the win last time. Will they take it again? Well, let's find out as they take to the Rift.
Will we see anything from the level 1? I think that Nidalee always has potential for some sort of level 1, especially if you've got strong laners. But here, I mean, honestly, laners probably aren't strong enough to really justify any sort of early game invade. Something sort of interesting is actually the Aerie picked up for the Lissandra. So most likely just going it for the melee lane, right? Wants to bully the Sylas a little bit. And it looks like it most likely will be on hit Varus as well. Has picked up lethal tempo. And I think I do prefer it, right? I feel like the poke Varus has kind of struggled a lot of the time.
They've been very particular conditions. I think it's probably the way you want to frame it, right? Where it looks like it's better. But certainly it doesn't seem to be a blanket in all cases. Draft Varus, go lethality, win game, right? It's certainly been a bit of a bait. So I think going back to your point previously about Baron DPS, whilst Dewish team might struggle, S9 for me excel.
Yeah, they've definitely got, you know, pretty much across the board, decent DPS at least. The on-head Varus obviously does do very well. Junglers here, opposite pass, going to have Fear pathing top, whereas WSL actually pathing bot, so pathing away from the Renekton lane, which is always interesting, right? Because a lot of the time you see this Renekton blinded, but then never really finding purchase. Although WSL, he might, instead of pathing bot, just go for some 3-camp top. But it feels like because he's gone for Krug second, most likely will not. It's always interesting, I think, jungle pass when you've got champs like Nidalee and Elise in the game, right? Definitely can go for stuff that's a bit different from normal.
I think it's almost warranted with these kind of champions, because if you do look to try and follow the cookie cutter style of play, it's a little bit too predictable, it's a little bit too easy. You have to kind of invent some weird ways that really offset the understandings of timings that these laners are working around, right? When do they decide to try and be aggressive? When do they place their wards and so on? So both pathing towards very different directions, with at least starting at the bottom side of the map, so looking to try and work towards top, maybe anticipating that WSL was doing the same to protect the Renekton.
Yeah, perhaps so. Now, Fear was actually spotted out in the ward and does get hooked.
Yep, same with the Deadly Flourish as well. Into the Spear. The Spear did connect despite the repel with nowhere to go. Instant flash after. Summoner Hill burnt too. Glacial Augment finds its value, slowing them down impeccably well, but a pounce across the wall. And that is first blood for Dewish team.
We talk about how this comp, it might be difficult for Dewish team to pull off, but so far, I mean, this is a good start, right? You get that first blood onto WSL's Nidalee. And maybe Columnia actually could be in trouble. Does drop the ward. But that's a rough death for Fear, right? He hadn't even pathed into his top side yet. And so is going to be, you know, going to spend a lot of time starting to clear that. And also importantly, won't have the red buff for any ganks, right? So it's going to be taken out of this game a lot. Now Fear, I think he enters the river just a bit too much without that priority. Takes so much damage before this fight really starts. And then from there, you know, S9, they try and kite it out, but just don't really have the strength to back it up.
And really well played by Dewish team. I mean, the damage all lands, the Ignite guarantees that the Summoner Hill finds little to no value, and the skill shots is the biggest thing for me. The skill shots were connecting.
Always important with the Nidalee. Pretty much all your damage comes from, oh, Fear, he's in big trouble. The blue smited away.
He's stolen away the blue buff. It goes from bad to worse. You've already died, you've already lost so much. If you get killed again, it almost feels like this game is over in the jungle. Pouncing across to get it done again. That's a solo kill, and that's a Nidalee that's saying, you can have your first pick Elise, but we're just better.
Insane performance from WSL, and that's really what you want to see, right? This Elise is completely out of the game, will not have any relevancy other than perhaps just a cocoon for the CC. And I mean, I feel like that was almost slated to happen, right? After Fear died bot side and so far away from his top side, now WSL can just take all of this. And what do you do as Fear? It's not like you can really enter the bot side here from WSL, because the Nidalee just has so much tempo and now has so much of a lead that if you ever encounter her again, you're just going to die.
Yeah, you're absolutely terrified now about the counter invade. You're screaming for attention from your laners as well, who also have to fight off their own battles and have been reluctant to assist. And it really begs the question, right? With a Nidalee that gets ahead, suddenly it becomes an absolute menace to contend with, because the clear just goes through the roof.
It really does. Now, there is a lot of comeback XP still on this patch, so there is a potential for Fear to keep up in levels, but you have to feel like if you don't get anything done early as an Elise, again, you don't scale horribly, but you might as well be playing a different champion at that point, right? And I think WSL certainly gets the start he wants. Kunai, though, in the top lane is just playing that Narvis Renekton matchup without jungle support, so it does feel sort of bad for him. But
Yeah,
I'm sure more than happy, right, with a 2-0 in Italy.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, right, is the fact that you're probably feeling bad in isolation, but quietly confident knowing that, hey, if Nidalee does come to my lane, we have more than enough damage to guarantee that the Snar will be falling on down. So level 6 is just being ticked over now for the Renekton. Teams are grouping up here, looking to try and put a bit of vision down, or at least a bit of a contest with numbers advantages as the first Dragon is there.
Will it be started up, though? I'm not sure, because I feel like WSL needs to put these camps on cooldown. Can always come back to the Dragon later. I don't think there's any chance Fear can really start it up. I think it's really maximizing that clear as Nidalee here. Try not to give Fear a window back into this game. Super, super important. And Xiaotu looks like he's itemizing probably towards the Merc treads fairly early, up against that double AP mid-jungle. Bot lane sort of just trading back and forth.
And where do you sort of expect to see the next bit of action really break from? I mean, is it mid lane, for example? Is that a very volatile matchup?
I feel like mid lane is not really the place to be. Although it's interesting because Calumnia's gone for tier as well. So very different Lissandra build from what we normally see. I would expect next to either be like a counter gank bot to try stop Fear from trading, or some sort of pressure top before this Herald, right? I feel like if you can get a gank onto Nara before the Herald, you all but guarantee it. But WSL, perhaps he'll try and play for everything, right? Like maybe he'll try to get the Dragon, just cross mid and go straight to the Herald. That's kind of the luxury of having so much tempo here on the Nidalee, is that you can do stuff that other junglers take much longer to do. Does not have the bot prior, at least for now, though. Will be spotted out on the ward.
Certainly will be. And he's going to clear that one out nice and early as Fear is in the area. As you say, lots of catch-up XP, so I'm going to be matched at level 5, despite being down a considerable amount of gold. They're just protecting that mid lane more than anything, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they kind of have to be around here for the 2v2. A lot of CC coming from the side of S9, but also just so much damage from the side of Dewish team. Dragon, I believe, still has not been started up, and Herald's on the cards now. I'd be kind of surprised if WSL trades this one away. I feel like you want to just keep fighting. You don't want to trade sides. Don't give any kind of jungle like way back in, right, for Fear. And it looks like, yeah, Dewish team, they will be bringing members back up, and S9 wisely back away from this Herald. And now that you get confirmation on where Fear is, it's easy for WSL to start this up, knowing that there's no trade coming onto your bot lane.
Yeah, and it's an interesting call, right? Because they could have very easily started up that Dragon, but decided to make the call, knowing that they saw all that vision from Calumnia roaming topside, that no, we actually want to protect this Herald. We're not trading at all. We're getting everything.
Certainly are. So this Herald will be picked up. Obviously, no plates have been taken yet, so there's not a great place to put it. But I think in a way, it's just a really valuable jungle camp even, right? Like you're not even needing really to get much out of it. You're really just trying to, keep getting your Nidalee ahead. Don't give a window back in the game for S9. And at least not having an opportunity to grab and use a Herald for a dive or something, it's pretty big as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's another sore point that really sort of snowballs what was a very strong early game for the Nidalee. S9 going to start with this Dragon here, commit bodies in the area. It's going to be a 4-man collapse from either end as they start it up, but they know that they certainly can't contest if Dewish team show face.
It feels bad for Fear. Starts up objectives, but just always ends up leashing it for Dewish team. Just really isn't strong enough in either the jungle or the lanes to have any business doing these, and is probably better off just playing to try farm his way back into the game. And Xiaotu, I mean, he's getting pretty low in terms of mana. Same time, don't feel like much will happen here.
You would be kind of surprised if something would break out as a result of this one, but it does feel like every single time Calumnia gets the ability to try and leave the lane, it is to go towards topside to try and give Relia, a point of power, at least something for them to rally around and feel hopeful of. It certainly has been easier said than done between the walls and all the Nidalee traps, though.
I think you're right, and Fear really struggling to find a way back into this game, right? Almost looks lost in the way he's walking around the map, but that's just kind of the state of the game right now. There isn't many places for him to pressure, and anywhere you go, if WSL is there to match, you're almost just forced away from it. I am curious as to where this Herald will end up going. I feel like, you know, without plates anywhere, it's not an obvious choice. Perhaps you just... Yeah, actually, I'm not even sure.
It does feel a bit curious, as to where it could potentially be used, because every lane feels like a bit of a stalemate as such, because the junglers have been so hyper-focused on winning out individually, more so than anything. So you're sort of waiting for that moment for the game to sort of explode open and an area for them to exploit be revealed. But as it stands, that XP lead really, or that gold lead rather, really does all stem from the Nidalee.
Yeah, and look at the XP. I mean, almost a full level ahead in the jungle this early on. Does feel pretty nice. It's sitting there at 2-0. You perhaps expect even more of an XP lead, but doesn't quite have it yet. Lots of control around this bot side. Herald, I think, probably should just go mid. I feel like just to... It's quite hard ever to take plates up against the Lissandra, obviously, as a Sylas. But giving gold over to the Sylas, I think, is one of the better uses of it in this game. And it also means if you can pick up that second Herald, it can allow you just to break open the map. But perhaps that's just the mid laner and me talking once that gold onto the Sylas. We'll see, though. Could even path back towards top and try play for some sort of gank here.
Yeah, certainly could. I mean, both these top laners have been trading fairly aggressively and trying to find their advantages, and you know, Relia is certainly utilizing his ranged advantage to good success, having built up a nice little lead for himself.
Beer is in the area though. This is a 2v2, but I have to feel like it's a 2v2 that Dewish team should win. I feel like there's not enough burst here from the side of S9 to really kill someone, and then certainly in the long fight should go the way of Dewish team. Although WSL's gone for the reset, so it's no longer a 2v2, instead of 2v1. Is waiting in the wings, hoping for something to happen.
Cancels the recall there. Like Unai just keeping him interested for a fraction longer. Whether or not that hurts him even further, given that WSL has no interest in coming top lane anytime soon. He's farming up an absolute storm right now. Still waiting for a moment to summon his Herald, and it was about to expire, so kind of just relegated to summon it in the mid.
Yeah, I think it's still a decent choice. I mean, it is just going to be able to go mid. You get a little bit of gold. They've actually brought up members, so perhaps want to try and pick Calumnia. But it's going to be very safe on this Lissandra. So it will just be a little bit of play gold going over, shared between a lot of members. So it's probably not the best usage of it, but at the end of the day, you're nearly still getting further ahead. So you're not hating it. I still feel, though, there is a way back in this game for S9, right? The gold lead is not super significant. And while the Elise will most likely be out of it, there is still strong team fighting from the other members.
Yeah, you still obviously have to merit the other individuals in this comp, right? You were mentioning that you certainly enjoyed what they had to bring and had to offer. And, well, the offering there is that Keres gets picked apart by the Nautilus. Magnastorm didn't really do too much, but there goes the Chain of Corruption, locking them all in place. But Pepero utilizing his range advantage with that curtain call, sniping up the double kill. And they'll find a third as WSL confirms that he is just so far ahead.
Yeah, what a disaster there for S9. I mean, that's a 4-for-none trade or something like that in the favor of Dewish team. And there's just no damage coming through. I don't think Calumnia had his Everfrost before that fight. You know, Fia so far behind as well. And obviously, Varus, he had the shield bow, but just haven't really got the opportunity to DPS. Just starts out with Keres just getting one shot before he can really tank anything up. I mean, actually just explodes. And yeah, not enough damage from anyone else remaining here. Pay attention to YJY's auto attacks. I think he only gets off, what, like 3 or 4 before he just gets CC'd down? And that's the weakness of the on-hit Varus, right, is you've got great extended DPS, but if a fight's short, you don't really get an opportunity to deal damage.
Yeah, you certainly don't, and you're always hunting, right, with your passive to get that first kill for that boost of attack speed, right? That little cheeky way to almost snowball your way to a second kill, but unable to have any uptime in that fight. Just too much CC, too much damage, and yeah, not enough fun.
Not enough. S9 perhaps looking towards the Herald. Might be able to pick it up if they know the Dewish team is on the Dragon. At the same time, though, a bit of a consolation prize, right? I don't think there's really anything you can get off this Herald. And it will be the second Dragon going over to Dewish team. Not as early as we've seen in some of the matchups before, but early enough that you will start to feel his pressure a bit later in the game. And don't tell me that Dewish team can force them off the Herald. I mean, he's trying.
He certainly is, right? With the dominance active right now, he's saying, hey, I'm going to stand and deliver and make sure that my team rocks up and takes this one away from you. The rappel goes down. Fear's flashing to get it. I'll die, but at least I'll get this Herald. You can kill me now. Job done. Rift Herald secured, but at such a high cost.
Yeah, I mean, I think flashing for it, probably not worth it. I don't even know if there's any way you can use it. But hey, I can respect the hustle. He does pick it up. And actually, Pepper could be in trouble.
Yeah, Pepper instant cleanse out of that one, right? Going to get dived in a 1v3. Flashes straight over, buying time with the TP. Columnius is here too late. They've lost their opportunity. The TP was enough of a deterrent. And then Columnius like, I can't even run back topside. The hook is ever so close. And Dewish team still firmly in control.
They are, and this could be looking at a perfect game, right? Currently, S9 haven't picked up any kills, dragons, or towers. And this could be the game to do it, right? We said in champs like Dewish team, their comp exists on a knife's edge, but if they find the snowball, they certainly have the tools to end this game quickly. And they're doing a great job of it so far.
Yeah, they certainly are. And it's a case now of, as you say, the emergency bandage. You flashed for this Herald. It has to go somewhere, and it has to find a lot of value. And that's just so hard to ask of, right? Because the Elise doesn't really feel like a champion at this point, right? Especially when you're up against a 3-0-4 Nidalee that is well on their way towards what? It feels like a third item, quite honestly. 6 decks on the Dark Seal, and already the Night Harvester complete.
Herald will be dropped on the bot tower, and I think that could stop the perfect game if it ends up taking the tower. We'll have to see. Xiaoju looking on to Columnia.
Yeah, really wants to try and zone away this this dive attempt. Not going to go for the Rod of Ages, actually. Going to use the Everfrost, just a little bit more utility, a bit of extra CC. Spear doesn't connect, but the chains will. The hook was good for insurance, but they didn't need it. The damage profile is just so high. In jumps the kunai with the TP, rather. Depth charge onto another. Rappel, up, down, hook, left, right. Good night. Dewish team just wiping the floor.
They are. They're just farming champions at this point. WSL, he doesn't need to farm camps anymore. Perhaps the saving grace is S9. They did manage to trade 2 towers, but it's starting to feel like too little too late, right? Down 0-11. Significant gold deficit, as well as no dragons to their name. You can't feel like you really have a win condition here as S9. To be fair, Rally has actually done pretty well in his 1v1. But it's like always the problem you kind of have with S9, right? Is it often feels like there's not enough players playing well at the same time.
Yeah.
They kind of take turns popping off, and it's very rare that the kind of the stars align for them almost.
It has been a frustration, and it sort of goes back to my point from draft why I've been a big fan of the split push champions for Irelia, because at least he has a way to try and say, well, if we are struggling, there is that avenue that we can potentially flip the game on, right? Maybe a cheeky tower here, you know, a drawing of attention of 3-4 members where we can then sneak in a Baron as a result, but much harder to achieve on a null, although you can certainly put in a lot of work. I mean, I remember a few, well, I say a few patches ago, a few metas ago, really, we did have Hull Break in Nar. But certainly not the case anymore.
Yeah, he finds the ulti. There's no follow-up.
Certainly does, but look at that. I mean, the pounce from the spear, the extended range. I mean, it feels to me as if WSL was saying, hey, you thought my Elise last night was good? Let's see if I can try and beat that record on Nidalee.
Yeah, sitting 5-0-5, I mean, certainly a possibility. Depends how many kills they can farm in the fountain, I guess, at this point. This time they're still looking for something, but I feel like they're asking for so much, right? It's so difficult to find any meaningful kills here, especially ones that would lead to some objectives. But perhaps can still try.
Yeah, the big takeaway for me, though, Shock, is that, yeah, Dewish team, with all these skill shots, they just continue to land. I mean, you know, it's almost like the classic, you know, Jace Varus comp. You need to make sure everything's connecting, otherwise you're quite scared about your chances of success. There is a flanking TP, hook from Enhao, forcing out the Mini-Nar, who's now in a lot of trouble, really, forced to run right on back. There is the Magnastorm onto 4, but they have no damage. That is a dead rail saying, where is my team? Fear is crippled, Columnia is low, flashing on through. WSL says, how many kills do we get here, boys? The tower's going to die as an extra casualty as well. And Fear is so lucky, but you know that WSL is coming in. He wanted one auto, and he'll get it.
Wow, I mean, how many kills are we up to now? Something like 17? It's getting pretty ridiculous. Well, yeah, he managed to get out of that fight. But Dewish team looking towards Baron at 20 minutes with a team that shouldn't really have damage for Baron, but is just so fed at this point that it almost doesn't matter. And WSL puts up 3.6k damage in that fight. I mean, really, really nice performance from him. 2 nights back-to-back. Feeling good.
Yeah, no doubt. The perfect week 4 performance on these early aggressive junglers. To smurf on the Elise like you do, then to have the ego, in my mind, to say you can have the Elise, but I'm going to stomp it, says it all.
And the TP, it came in from Calumnia, but I think Relia's Gnarl kind of ran out a bit too soon. And the best you can do is to shove an Aftershock Nautilus, which does no damage. And then the turnaround from like Dewish team, I mean, the Magnet Storm was really, really nice. Credit to Karis, found an amazing engage. But like you said, where's the damage? There just isn't any. There's none to find from the back end of it, Dewish team. I mean, I feel like the tower might have been the one doing the most damage in this fight, and it still wasn't enough. Really good juggling of the aggro there with the stopwatch. And I mean, the fact that a comp with no Baron DPS picks up the Baron, it tells the state of this game, right? As well as the 2 Medjais picked up from the mid jungle. I mean, really feeling themselves, and who wouldn't with the score now 16-0.
The double AP threat from your mid jungle duo saying, we are so accelerated. Hey, that Dark Seal for sure is a Medjais. And whilst it's not your classic perfect game in terms of the fact that towers have been taken, still, I mean, S9 are struggling to find a kill, so the Medjais feels like a valid pickup.
Yeah, I like it. I think that, you know, if you give over the Magi stacks, it sucks. But when you buy it, if you got 10 stacks, you get the extra movement speed. It's actually a really strong item, even then. Shelter will be knocking down this tower. How much can they get done with this Baron? I feel like if you find any sort of engage, the game just instantly ends. At the same time, if you can't find something, I mean, you don't have the best siege comp. You have decent poke, but it's not amazing. I suppose the engage is good too. I think if you walk away just breaking the base, you're already happy. But if you can get even more, if you can find kills, you know, you got a 10k gold lead, right? If you find any kill here, you can certainly play for the win.
Yeah, 10k gold lead at 22 minutes is fairly devastating to say the least. Hook very close to landing there, as they now do begin to break open that base. Now let's see if they can try and pick up an inhibitor. Might seem a little bit far-fetched, given that they are all in as it stands right now on this top lane. But S9's attention is certainly divided between, do we attend mid lane, or do we look to try and zone them back from what is now an inhibitor down to 50%?
Yeah, okay, engage comes through from S9, actually.
Yeah, complete hard force by Calumnia, isn't it? And complete overextension at the same time. Flashing on in, self-cast the ult, dies for it, no follow-up once again. WSL is godlike. Is it anybody's surprise? From start to finish, has been performing ever so well. Inside your base, you're not even safe there. 4 members dying for absolutely nothing, and a TP on your minion to make sure that, hey, we are ending this game right here and right now. What a speed run from Dewish team, showcasing that we're tied in 9th place, but the record means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, they pick up the win 20-0, and I do have to say that I think obviously it looks very one-sided here, but that's always going to happen with that comp, right? It's either you're going to hard win or you're going to hard lose. There really is no in-between when you're playing something like the Nidalee Renekton and the Silas as your top side, but they certainly made it work, right? We've seen a similar comp out of Dewish team before. It was against a stronger opponent, and S9... I feel like confidence shattered after that game.
Yeah, and that was the big concern, right, coming into this one. The fact that they have had this really rough run of games. Impunity, PSG, CFO, back-to-back, that you come into this one maybe already feeling fairly deflated, that even if this game looks even on paper, maybe a lot of that has already faded away quite early on. And you felt it from the fact that these really strong champions were given over to them, but unable to really ever get started.
So MVP, I think, probably goes to WSL. Will be 2 nights in a row, and he's certainly looking like perhaps a star on this roster, right? They're a struggling roster, and it's always difficult, I think, to look good on a team that so consistently loses. But I mean, in all his wins, you know, really